So for the crediting of contributions, again, it's based on the contribution amounts sent by the employers. And it's a quick access to the credits and the processes of what will be happening. So basically, as soon as you submit the file, you'll be able to see and access your credits. And I'll talk more about the return of excess contributions on the next slide. So what this will do with credited contributions is that it will save up to 2 weeks because you will have access to your money right away, and you can apply that to any file that uploads at another date. So one of the major aspects is that we believe that it'll save you on penalty 4. So one of the penalties and interest is because the money will be arrived at an earlier date, you'll be saving a couple months of the penalties if the lines go back prior to that. So we will be seeing, or the employers will be seeing, a decrease in penalty force. Another aspect that we're doing is we're keeping CB and DB separate. So if you don't have CB, then you don't have to worry about it. But this is one of the areas where it makes it a little bit cleaner, so you can definitely see the difference between the CB contributions and the DB. So for the next slide, we're going to talk about a little bit about the updates of the crediting process. So before you start sharpening your pitchforks, we have been listening to you. We've been hearing your phone calls. Even the anonymous one that said that I have the face for radio. You guys are not going to get that many more jokes, so enjoy them while they're here. So with this, with the return of excess, we're going to keep manual warrants. So the main return of excess is coming this September with the annual update, as a lot of you already know. So you will be getting that manual warrant. We are also going to be including quarterly runs. So these are the ad hoc reports for the of the excess payments as well. So you'll be receiving quarterly payments as well as the yearly payments in the manual file for now going forward. For some of the enhancements, we will be doing more of a, well, there will be notifications or more notifications. So these notifications will be hitting basically if you upload a file, if you associate a payment, whether we received cash at CalSTRS or if you have a credit. So basically you'll be getting, after the 24, basically as soon as you upload a file, you'll be getting an alert saying like, oh, here is a little update on what is happening. So whether you're not here, you're sick, someone else did it, everyone or your group will know what's going on with your program. So the notifications will be kind of similar to, whoops, that's weird. So the notifications will be very similar to what you're currently seeing with the P&I invoices. So you should be receiving notifications about P&I, and what you will be seeing in the future is something very similar to that, but in a little bit more detail. For a lot of you, CAP, which is the Contribution Accounts Portal, this will be a new tab on that. So it'll be very similar to what you currently see and what you're comfortable with. Again, when you upload the files, everything will be completely constant. Everything's just the same going forward. So there shouldn't be any changes to that, or shouldn't be any surprises as to how you upload a file, because everything will be the same. For CAP, there'll be a new tab for the crediting process. So it'll be in the same environment that you guys are all used to and that you're kind of familiar with, except there will be a little bit extra data and more information for you. So in the CAP tab, there will be an area where it's more of a self-service. So you can apply that credit into whatever file you like, as well as if you don't want to do anything, you don't have to do anything either. CalSTRS can apply that for you. So you can either be completely hands-on or you can just be completely hands-off. It's up to your own personal tastes. So Another little aspect that we're working on is a more file detail level of the payments. So when you run a report in CAP, we're looking into a more detail level as to the file amounts, the file, like what's associated to it, so that you guys would have more clear access data into what exactly you submitted and how much you submitted and where you applied certain payments. Next, we're going to talk about the implementation timeline. So if you guys didn't get the hint, we are going forward with this. We are doing the crediting. So right now we're currently in the summer process where we are, we're still communicating with you guys. We still want your feedback. And then during late 2019 is when we are planning on implementing the program. So there will be training and continual communication with the employers as well to get your feedback and concern. And now we're going to open up to the questions.
Hello again.
Yes.
Teresa, Stanislaus County. Couple questions. How long will the credits sit there before CalSTRS will decide something needs to be done with the funds? If we decide to leave them there for 60 days maybe, because the file we need the money for will take that long to get to you. Will that still be there in 60 days or 90? What's our cutoff?
Cassie will. Oh.
Hi, Cassie Malbec, contributions, that's really loud. So we're putting a configurable date in there. What we're thinking, and this would be good feedback maybe to hear, is 60 days. We want to be able to allow employers to have a couple files that would be kind of sitting there for you to be able to apply the credit. We don't want to leave it there too long, but we were thinking 60 days is reasonable, but I would like to hear feedback if you think, that's not long enough. Maybe kind of help us understand what you think would be appropriate, and we can kind of go from there. But that was kind of what we were thinking of doing, was about 60 days.
Okay, so it would be 60 days from the date of the payment or date of the initial file association?
It's going to be based on, I'm going to look at Curtis, but it's based on the payment yes, based on the payment, based on when the money gets there.
Then we would need longer than 60.
Okay, so maybe if you could think about what you think, and
Sure.
that would help us. We're going to put it configurable so we can always play with that number if, just to kind of find the sweet spot, basically.
Okay, and then my second question was, is the employer going to be able to request the refunds back instead of waiting for it to hit that date trigger? Can they request it back sooner?
So thank you for that question, because I just want to clarify. So the only portion of contributions that we're going to continue to refund, and it's for a time being, it will not be ongoing, is the return of excess cash. We heard a lot of feedback from you guys. It's a big dollar amount. There's some challenges with it. So we hear you. We want to be sensitive to that. So we're willing to refund that for a little bit longer until, we can kind of really work through this process, see how it goes. As far as regular contributions, there will not be an option for refund. So your normal contributions that you remit monthly, once you remit them to us, they would stay on as a credit for you to apply. Employers also have the ability to change the way they're doing estimations and maybe not inflate as much what they're sending to us. You can do that as well. So you don't, if you're worried about the credit sitting on there.
Okay, I'll think on that more and email you later. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Renee from Napa. I'm just curious what happens after the time period with that money if it's not credited?
What happens with the money if it's not credited? So you're saying it's sitting there, you don't apply anything to it.
You said you can't refund, so what
Right.
happens to it? Is it automatically applied to the next file then?
If there's nothing there, yes. So if you don't have invoices or anything like that, your account's pretty clean, it would just apply to the next file. Yes.
Automatically then, we wouldn't have
If
the
you
choice.
hit that, if you hit past whatever that day is, yes, the system's going to pick it up. It's going to apply based on first in, first out rules. It'll pay off contributions first. If you have a return of excess invoice, it'll pay that, and then it would go to your P&I.
Okay, so Teresa's over here again, sorry. If I have contributions on account with you, you're saying if I have no other contribution files, I'm past that date, that money might have been needed to be applied to an older file that's coming up because we have problems with getting the lines reported? You're going to apply that to my next invoice for P&I?
It just depends on what's sitting there. So if you have nothing else sitting there, whatever that time frame is, it will apply to what needs to be paid, basically.
Because I would prefer to keep contribution monies as contribution
Right.
monies and P&I monies as P&I monies.
I think with you guys,
makes
because
sense.
you guys are so frequent with supplementals and other things, I don't think you will run into that issue with your situation because you upload quite a bit of files, but I hear you.
Right, but I have, those files are external agencies that we're reporting for, and the
Yeah.
monies should associate that we paid, those should go to their files, not my next file.
Yeah, we'll have to chat about that because really it's, like I said, we're gonna put that time limit there. I don't think you're gonna run into that time limit issue just because of the volume of what's going on. Now, for a county that doesn't have that volume, that may happen to where if you have outstanding P&I invoices that have not been paid and you have money sitting out there and it's extra money, you've already applied it to your file, you still have extra money, it may get applied to an invoice, a P&I invoice.
Yeah, contribution money is contribution money, it's not extra money, it's something's coming to you as a reported line. Okay.
Hi, Juanita Lopez, Sacramento County. And this might be apples and oranges, but, we have similar situations with CalPERS and how they keep the money and it's applied. They have credits that we apply. And they tried to move our contribution money to penalty money. And I told them that I didn't want that to happen. And then when I finally got to somebody, they had said that you can't take contribution money and apply it to penalties. There's some kind of law against that. Are you aware of that?
I can tell you that we've been consulting with legislation and our tax council, and I haven't heard that. So I can take that information back, but I
it's a
can share that we
question.
have been actively making sure we're in compliance with law and ed code and tax laws. But I will take that back.
It might be a government code. of
Yeah,
some
no,
sort.
thank you for that. I'll take that back, and then we can maybe even reach out to CalPERS and, because we did reach out to them when we first started initiating this, just seeing kind of how they did it, growing pains, things like that. But
Because we'd like to keep those two things separate because this is, employees, member contributions
Sure.
and not supposed to be used for penalties because we didn't make make our payment on time.
Sure, and I think there's a way to do it. I mean, like Marco said, you can actively be in there managing your account, but we do have some employers that will come to us and say, why are you sending me a refund check if I owe you contributions or I owe you P&I? And so I do have other employers that kind of want us, stop sending me a check if I owe you money, just use that money to apply. So I think there's a way. What we're trying to do is make it flexible so those employers that kind of want to sit back and not have to worry about it, the system will do that for you. For those employers that want to be more active in the management of it, I think that, like I said, there's some sweet spot of a number that we can get to where you will be able to apply your credits how you want to apply them. Yes, that's the
Okay.
goal.
One more to tag on to what you were talking about with Sacramento and taking the contributions and paying invoices. The contributions are some employer monies and it's some employee monies. And we can't charge employees for P&I, so I believe that would be a good reasoning to not use contribution funds to pay an employer expense.
I mean, I hear you, and I'll take this
Okay.
back. I'm just, and I'll consult with PERS, but I can tell you that we have been consulting with our legal and tax counsel on all of this as well, moving forward with it.
Hi, Vicki Lewitt, Kern County Superintendent of Schools. What about 60 days from the day that it becomes a credit, rather than from when it was first paid?
We can look at that. I'm looking at Curtis. I mean, I don't know that we can answer it off the cuff, but that's something we can look at when it becomes a credit instead of when we receive the cash. So it's giving you that extra,
Extra time. to get
basically
something else
45
submitted if we need
days,
to.
depending on when you first apply it. We can look at that. And like I said, 60 days is what we were thinking. I will share with you, though, there is a concern where we also do not want to become a bank and do not want to sit on money for too long. So there's, like I said, there's got to be a sweet spot that kind of CalSTRS can live with and helps employers so that they can associate how they want to. But we'll take that back and
Okay.
see if that's
Thank
something
you.
we can manage.
Ivina from Orange County. Like others are mentioning about keeping contributions separate than P&I. And sometime the contributions could be for District A, the refund, the credit, but P&I could be for District B and C. So we will be doing all that bookkeeping. That will increase a lot of work for us. That, okay, give that money back to them, collect from them, you know. So we don't want to do that.
I hear you.
I mean, I know.
But we are moving forward with crediting, so we need you to get a little more comfortable with it. We are going to provide, Marco said, monthly statements. Your monthly statements will show you what credit was applied to what file. It'll show you balances, your cap will show you that. So we're trying to provide whatever we can for tools for you guys. But you just have to remember that CalSTRS doesn't know that District A paid you on time and District B didn't. You know what I mean? That stuff CalSTRS doesn't know. So we couldn't provide you with more information that is not provided to us. We can only provide you with the information that we're aware of. So we know when we get the money, you know, we know who's on the file and things like that, but we don't know kind of your guys' process between your units. So kind of like today, I can't provide you with that information today. We're not collecting more information from you guys, so I can't provide that to you. What I can do is show you from a monthly statement what's gone on, and then when you access the CAP portal, you can see daily what has gone on, if the system has applied something, if you've done something. We're also trying to put flexibility in there to, let's say you associated something and maybe you're like, oh, no, wait, I didn't mean to do that. I wanted it to go to this file. We're going to allow you to disassociate as long as it's done within the same day. By a certain cutoff, the system's just going to grab what's there. But we're trying to add that flexibility because these are things that internally my staff are kind of doing for you guys right now. And I know sometimes there's frustration of like, hey, this wasn't associated, or where's this, or did you get my cash? So what we're trying to do is build something where it can be more
Easier for STRS.
easy. No, I'm not saying that. More self-service for you to manage it. So if I can't get to you so quickly to say, yes, this is what it is, you will have a tool that will provide you with that information.
Yeah, it's,
There's going to be challenges for our side as well, but I hear you.
yeah, because once we get done with the report, we send the money, we are actually kind of done. But now we won't be done because we will always be reconciling with all those payments. So it will be an ongoing process for us. So I don't know our benefit at all, you know, so.
Yeah, well, I think there'll be some benefits there. We'll see as we go along. We did add some enhancements, and we are trying to provide more customer service with some of the tools, like I said, so that they're more attainable. So we are trying to do that.
Yeah, it's just that between PERS and STRS, our workloads are just constantly increasing with all the corrections and balancing. And I don't want to be crying though. I'm just kidding. Thank you.
Robin from Stanislaus County. I just have one, like just a scenario that just keeps playing in my head. So let's say we have a file and we submit it and it's $200,000, and then we have a $15,000 credit because we paid $215,000, right? So you're holding on to those funds, and then we say, okay, we have $15,000 extra, so we short pay our next file by $15,000. In the meantime, you've taken that $15,000 and applied it to penalties and interest, and now for our next file, we're short. So what's gonna happen there? Because all I see is more penalties and interest because of, you guys applying payments.
Well, but if we give you 60 days, that gives you, so it's 45 days for when a file is due, plus another 15. So that's why I'm saying, I think the 60 days, the frequency of when files come in, you should be able to use those credits to your files more frequently than PNI. So I guess, but we can talk that out, but that's kind of where we came from with the 60 days. It's 45 days. Most of you guys are getting your files in within 30 days and less than 45 days, but at least the 45 days, if those of you that need that full 45 days, it gives you an additional 15 days plus that to do something with that cash. Does that make sense? But we can talk it out. And like I said, 60 days is what we're thinking. We're open to if you think there needs to be a little bit more. We just have to kind of find that sweet spot so that it does give you enough time to continue to apply it to files coming in. That's the intention of it, is for you to be able to apply it to the files.
Sheila Walker, Tama County Department of Ed. I'm probably going to get crucified for this, but I don't think STRS is listening because we told you guys all of this to begin with. PERS is a nightmare to balance, and it's like nobody listens to us. You say we've got access to the money, but it doesn't help us if we have to balance it between all of our districts and everything. This just really saddens me, and I know you guys are trying hard, but you're not listening.
Any other questions? Okay.
So again, if you have any other questions and you would like to take it offline and contact us directly, you can do it at contributions@CalSTRS. And by the way, the Q&A went, you can contact me directly. I go by a nickname, Chris Contributions. So that's contributions@calstrs.com if you want to contact me directly. I'll see myself out. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Okay, we're going to do our legislative update with Joyce Lynn.
Hello again. Joyce Martinez, Director of Governmental Relations here at CalSTRS. So I have a brief update for you. You have the goldenrods in your folders for all the bills that the board took a position on this year. I'm just going to update you on a few. Going down on the first page to AB 644, it's our annual housekeeping bill. So that bill was actually signed by the governor not too long ago. It really is a bill that is largely clarifying in nature, so there should be no changes that you have to make. I think the one that touches on most closely with what you work with is the definition of annualized pay rate. So this is not changing anything, but that kind of term was incorporated into the definition of comp earnable, which is used for final compensation. So we split that out. So annualized pay rate, as you know, is what you would pay a member who's working full-time in a position. So that we think will be helpful for readability in the law and just to connect what you're reporting to what is in the law. So really, that's the only thing there on the housekeeping bill. And we went through the provisions pretty thoroughly in the last meetings, not in May, but the two previous meetings when the bill was moving through the process. To move to the next bill, AB 706, which is actually sponsored by the Faculty Association of California Community Colleges, and kind of ties into the earlier presentation that Beth gave you. This is not something that CalSTRS has control over. It affects community college faculty, so it's not K through 12, but just wanted to update you on this, is that in the past, there was a 3-year time limit on which sick leave could be transferred from one employer to the next. So what the bill does and again, this has been signed, so it'll go into effect January 1st, is that it removes that time limit. So for community college faculty, if they change districts, and let's say 10 years later, 20 years later, they're getting ready to retire, and of course, we need to get the sick leave from the last employers, they can request that that sick leave be moved from a previous employer anytime earlier in their career to the last employer. And so that's going to go into effect, again, community colleges. On the K through 12 side, it has to be transferred within the next school year is kind of the way the law reads in the Greater Education Code. But we were tracking that to make sure we were aware of what happened. So I want to just bring that to your attention. And the last bill I'll mention is AB 1452, which I think is on the second page of your document. That's our other bill this year, is a membership cleanup bill, a housekeeping bill. Again, that one is actually on the suspense file in Senate Appropriations Committee. The legislature is in the last 3 days of their recess. They'll be coming back Monday. They'll take up that suspense file before August 30th, so probably the last week of August, and we'll know if that bill will move forward. Again, really a clarification bill mirroring what you do now, so no changes, a lot of cash balance clarifications, some forms being included specifically for cash balance. So right now, there's not necessarily forms for electing in certain situations if trustees want to elect. So if you're a cash balance employer, there may be more formality to that process, but otherwise not a change there. Just again, I think the biggest clarification we're making is that for employees 50% or more full-time, or if they're on a permanent basis, that they become members right when they start. So there's not a lag of a month. I think it's very rare occurrence, but sometimes these instructors or teachers don't get enrolled into CalSTRS until 1 month after they've started. So they've kind of got a month hanging out in Social Security or something like that. So just being clear that they all come to us right when they start working. So there's not this kind of 1 month oddball out period. So that's where that bill is. Again, clarifying in nature. I don't think there's anything else on those that's on the list that I would bring up. Any questions for me on any other bills that might be of interest on that list or otherwise? Okay, and then a regulations update. You're familiar with the new file format regulations connected to the Pension Solution Project. And so we had our comment period in March and April. We had a public hearing in April. No one came to the hearing to testify. We received 9 letters with about 7 comments because they overlapped in different places. The July board item that we had really went into depth on what the comments were, what our responses were, and our recommended changes. And so it was 10 pages, full text. I keep threatening it to read it to people, but it would be a lot. So if you want to go back and look at the details, they're in that item. The main concerns were around cost, and so we addressed that. There was some pieces on the employment file around leave and annual total compensation. I think this was connected to the cost somewhat, is that do those have to leave? Does it have to be reported every time someone takes leave? Annual total compensation, how do we do that? So we provide some clarifying language around annual total compensation. It's what you report to the EDD. But for both pieces, I want to echo that we did include language that unless it's otherwise required by law, then it's not required here. This provides the method by which you would provide it to us. We think these things are helpful. They would be helpful in contacting members if they can purchase permissive service credit for annual total compensation. They will help us catch variances and help you more quickly solve any problems if pay happens to drop off on the credible comp side, but what you're reporting to EDD stays at a certain level, would help us look at that and get to you more quickly. So we think that those are really good practices. But there's nothing included in law that would have you do that regularly. On the leave side, of course, if someone submits a permissive service credit purchase, we come to you to verify that that leave was taken. So we will still come to you for that. But the language in the regs now makes clear that this is a method by which you would submit that in the employment file. On the contribution file side, I think there was some questions just clarifying what certain fields were for, why we have fields that look redundant. And so we provided changes in the file layouts that are part of the regulations they're basically endnotes that help explain things, refer to the code, so you have that direct link there. Sometimes the redundancies we explain have to do with the fact that we, of course, are using legacy data as well to calculate members' retirement benefits. They do have lengthy careers, so when Pension Solution goes into place, they will still have data that was in START, our current system. And so we look at that as well and provide some additional helpful endnotes that are in each of the fields that you would be providing values in. So with all of that, the board in July said, go ahead, do you think these changes address the comments? And we put those out for a 15-day comment period, which just ended on Friday. So we did not receive any comments on those changes. And the plan would be to go to the board in September, so September 6th, I believe, is when their regular meeting is, to ask for their approval of the regulations. And then we would move forward with submitting them to the Department of Finance and the Office of Administrative Law for them to go through and see if they can approve those regulations. So that's kind of how the process works. Again, as for effective date, so the last I heard, and this may not be quite right, but the OAL, if they were determined to go into place, they put things into place quarterly, so they have one date each quarter that things go into effect. So I think these would fall on the April 1st date as to when they would be on the books. However, if you've read the regulations, you know that they don't actually become effective until October 2021. And so that is, I think there'll be the employer readiness environment that's ready to come online. You'll get more of this information in the next update in fall 2019. But then go live and actually getting to participate in the system is happening in October 2021. So that's when the new file format regulations, the earliest they can go into effect. And then back to the first issue I mentioned, there was 3 waiver periods that could be requested in the regulations for a total of 18 months beyond that October 2021 date. With the concerns with the cost, we understand needing to get ready and provide that long ramp up. So we're actually adding an additional waiver period. So there's 24 months of waivers, 4 waiver periods, 6 months each. And so that provides essentially at this point in time 4 years to ramp up to getting on board with the new file format. So, and I know John will go into more detail probably on some of that process for you. Any questions on that? Okay, cool. Thank you. Thanks.
And with that, we'll go into the Pension Solution Project update. I'd like to welcome John Hammond.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you, Rita. Thank you, Diane. Again, my name is John Hammond, and I'm a manager of the Employee Readiness Team at CalSTRS. Now, Bill Frericks has been talking with you about the new pension administration system for many years now. And Bill and I work really closely together regarding employer readiness. And actually, literally, Bill works 2 feet to my right. And so our desks are right next to each other. And my team, the employee readiness team, is kind of built in a pod, and so there's 6 of us that are kind of huddled in a pod kind of desk situation. And we're talking about pension solution, the impact to you, employer readiness, all the time. I mean, it's what we do when we come to work, and I'm just really happy to be the one to be presenting to you today. Now, for anyone unfamiliar with what the Pension Solution Project is, let's just cover this really quickly. Some of this, many of you might already know, but just in case. The Pension Solution Project replaces the CalSTRS pension administration system. The system will track member service credit and compensation throughout their careers. It aligns with the CalSTRS strategic plan and delivers 4 primary benefits to the organization and those they serve. Those benefits are an increased ability to respond to customer and business needs, enhance services to members, beneficiaries, staff, and employers, gain long-term operational efficiencies, and improve internal controls. Now, one of the new infographics that we've created just recently, some of you might have seen this, others have not, but I would like to spend a little longer time here walking you through this. So what you're looking at is a transition timeline into the new pension administration system. And if you look up top, you'll see the functional rollout 1, functional rollout 2. Internally, we use the acronym FR, so FR1, FR2, FR3. FR1 is the soft launch of the employer readiness environment, and in layman terms, that is the testing environment. That's the testing period of time leading up into FR2, which is going to be the implementation of the new pension administration system. We've also referred to that before as like the new SO, if you will. So in FR2, right now, when you go to SO, you use the URL sew.calstrs.com, and that takes you to SO, and that's where you submit contributions and enter enrollments and all those kind of things. At FR2, you're going to use that same URL, and it's going to look very different. It's going to be the new SO, the new pension administration system, on that very day. And then, of course, FR3, there's going to be member functionality, but there'll probably be some employer functionality introduced at that particular time as well, and we'll address that at another time, because really I want to focus in on FR1 because that's what's coming up really quickly. So FR1 will really start, we'll start getting employers into the testing environment in the beginning of 2020. And what you'll experience there essentially is what the new pension solution system feels like. You're going to be able to touch it, you're going to be able to see it, you're going to see the converted data in there, you're going to be able to see member accounts, you're going to be able to picture, you know, this is how they're going to display the information, this is how I get to that piece of information related to the members, and you're going to be able to feel it, touch it, and get really familiar with it. You're also going to be able to test your current files that you submit to through SO today. You'll be able to test those exact same files in the testing environment at FR1. And so you can upload those files, you can resolve the business errors, and you can, again, get a good feeling for the functionality that is being introduced to you during FR1, or I'm sorry, during the new pension administration system. Now, also, what you'll be able to do is upload new file format files as well. And so you'll be able to experience, you know, those new business rules and experience all the different functionality that's going to be introduced with the that new file format. And if I can draw your attention, between FR1 and FR2, you see a final validation period right there. And so at FR2, we are going to be able to accept new file format files, and we're going to be able to accept the current files that you submit through SO today. We're going to be able to accept both at FR2. Now, what this final validation period is a moment in time where we will call you and say, hey, how's testing the new file format going? And you know, you as the employer are going to say, it's great, I love the new file format, this thing is awesome, I wish you would have done this years ago, it's solving so many problems and making my life so much easier. So we know you're going to respond that way, and then we're going to say, oh, that's wonderful. Could you test one more time submitting a new file format file, just so that we can all be on the same page, develop some confidence in you and in us that you can submit those contribution files. And once you do that, we'll say, okay, so at FR2, you are going to be using the new file format files at that time. Now, another scenario, very, very unlikely, is we're going to ask, hey, how's the new file format going? And you're going to say, not so good. It's really hard, our project isn't as far as we hoped, and we don't have everything in place, and we don't think we're going to be ready at FR2. So our response is going to be, that's okay. That's okay, because we have a contingency plan, and that is to continue using the files that you submit through SO today, that you are going to use those exact same files at FR2 at system implementation. Now, we would say at that final file validation, we'll say, hey, submit one of those current files in the testing environment one more time, just so we can validate that you can do it, that we have confidence that at FR2 that's not going to be a problem for you. And then once you do that, we're going to say, okay, great, at FR2, continue using that current files that you use today. Now, in order to use those current files, some of this has been alluded to before, is really it's a limited time that you have you'll still have to be working on developing your new file format. It's not just a pass, but you'll be able to, at FR2, continue to use those files, and we have a waiver process. I don't want to get into all those details just yet, and I'll let you know in just a little bit when you will know about that. Whoops. Oh, I blew the surprise. Nope, it's turning on itself. I'll put this down. Okay, one other thing is, so you might ask, well, what kind of support am I going to get when I'm using the testing environment? And the beautiful thing right now is the employer services representatives, the very CalSTRS staff that you call as employers when you need help resolving business rules or submitting contributions or enrolling members. Those same exact staff people are getting trained in the new pension administration system. And so you could, if you find yourself in a situation where you have a whole host of questions, you could call your employer services representative and say, I have one question about and I have one question about the testing environment. And that employer services representative would say, great, I can help you with both things. So that's where your support, your frontline support in using the testing environment is going to come from if you have any questions along the way as you're testing. Now you might ask, okay, so when do I get the test? I see the diagram, where do I fit in all this? And the truth of the matter is we really don't know quite yet. What we're doing right now is we are having conference calls with all the payroll vendors and the employers that have custom payroll systems who also use vendors, outside vendors, to come in and help them with their system changes. And we're talking about where are you with the new file format development? When do you think your customers are going to be tested? What is your rollout strategy? How can we help you? We're sharing this very exact diagram. If you go to your payroll vendors and say, hey, where in this diagram are we going to fit? You know, that they will be familiar with this diagram. But we're having those conversations right now, August all the way through September, and based on that information of when they're going to be ready and their strategy with their customers, we are then going to have a series of webinars in November and December of this year. We're calling them the soft launch kickoff webinars. And those webinars is going to be when we, CalSTRS, are going to tell you the soft launch implementation plan. This is the testing plan. These are the windows. This is the maintenance releases that are coming done. This is when the data is going to get refreshed. This is when we think that you can test. Escape, which is a payroll vendor, has said that they think their customers are going to use this, test the system at this particular month. So it's all those informations. That's the big reveal party. Well, I don't know if you want to call it a party, but you know, that is essentially everything that you're really wanting to know about FR1 and what's the testing going to be like, what's that going to be feeling like, and that's what's going to be happening. Okay, well, I didn't turn that slide, but here it is. The reveal. So one of the other things that we're working on, my team has been working on, is the employer support portal. This is a new website that is going to support employers and support you in the transition to new SO, the new pension administration system. And so if I can draw your attention to the top, you'll see 3 links there. You'll see the secure employer website. That's just SO today. That's just so.calstrs.com. That's what you use today, but we just have a convenient link for you to use at that time. In the middle, top middle, you see the Pension Administration Learning Management System. Now you're going to love this. So that is where you would go to take computer-based training. So right now we are developing a lot of computer-based training. The acronym is CBTs. I might slip into my acronyms by mistake. So the CBTs, we're developing them on how to submit contributions to the new pension administration system, how to manually enroll members. I mean, all that functionality that you're like, how am I going to do that? Well, we're creating classes. We're creating CBTs that not only do you take, but you could determine, you know what, I need all my districts to take this class. And so you could ask your districts to enroll in those classes, to take those CBTs, and it just depends on the kind of functionality you want your districts to get trained on. And so that's really exciting for us. So you would come here, you'd click on that, and you would see classes that are available to you. And then on the far right, is the employee readiness environment. Again, in layman's terms, that's the testing environment. And so that's where the new SO is going to be for you to touch and feel it. And so you're going to need our help to get access into that, and that's the kind of information that we would be giving in the kickoff webinars later on in this year. So those are the 3 links that will be provided here. And then the message board down there kind of in the middle, the message board is we're going to put all the information to keep you informed about the testing environment and the learning management system. So announcements you would see there is, hey, we have a new class on how to enroll members manually, you know, into the portal, or how to manually enter a contribution line. You know, we have that class available. So register now. You know, we're going to have that kind of information here. We would also have, when we release release notes or FAQs or update the technical manual, all those announcements will be right here for you to see and view and see what's new. Now, the other great thing about this too is that there's no login screen to get here. The URL is employersupport.calstrs.com. It's not up and running just yet. It will be up and running very soon, this fall. But so you could, for say, have your districts have this link and let them come in and check on things and whatnot. So there's no login screen. This is open to the public. Your third-party administrators can look. Your vendors can look. We're trying to keep it as open as possible to make it easy to communicate and for you to communicate with the people who are dependent upon you. So one last thing to point out is the toolkit and resource section there to the right. And so all the technical information in using the employer readiness environment is going to be here. It might be too small for you to see, but we'll have like the new file format file specifications. We'll have the crosswalk guide between the old file format, the file that you currently use, and the new file format. We'll have a testing guide. We will have just all job aids, just tons of technical information in here for you to have in order to inform you and help you in transitioning and testing, during that FR1 period of time. Okay, and lastly, this is my team's email address. If you ever have any questions or you need any help, or you just find yourself confused, or I've just talked too fast and you want to have this presentation again, please don't hesitate to contact us and ask for some support. My team is in place here at CalSTRS specifically to help you transition from what you're doing now to what you'll be doing at FR2, FR3, and going forward. And so just that you know that's why we're here, so please don't hesitate. So I do have some time for some questions if anybody has some. Yes, Vina. Are you going to be the ones that are going to be excited about new file format?
Yes, I am.
Yes. Okay.
Just kidding.
Okay, Orange County, new file format FR2, sign her up. Okay, go ahead.
I don't have a question. I just have a suggestion.
Yes, please.
You know how the charter schools right now, they don't meet the criteria to report independently
Yes.
to CalSTRS,
Yes.
but their payroll is processed by normally a third party?
That third-party administrator is how we refer to them, yeah.
Is it possible to at least in the new system, whenever or even under current, we can give them access to the charters to give access to the third party so they can at least enroll the employees in STRS system?
Yeah, so we know
So we
that.
don't have to enroll them.
Right, the truth be told, we know that they're doing that now. So we can see that third-party administrators are using employer accesses to get into SO and enroll. And so that process would still continue. We can't give. Oh, you want to do it honestly, huh?
You want to do it with proper paperwork.
Okay, you know what, let me get back to you. I know my technical staff is listening to me right now, and they're probably saying, John, don't answer, we have a better answer. So let me get you a direct answer on that one. Any other questions? Okay, great. Once again, please email us if you have any questions at all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. And so I know in Employer Services, we're excited about working with this project and supporting you as employers. So if there are any questions and you're not able to ask them now while you're here, please feel free to email John at the PS employerreadiness@calstrs.com, or please ask your ES rep, and we will make sure that we do our best in Employer Services to get you that information. And so with that, we have our subject matter experts here from across CalSTRS, and we are at the open forum portion. I know we've given you a lot of information today, and it's a lot to take in. but we wanted to give you the opportunity to ask any questions regarding other topics within the organization, within employer services, or our support of you. One moment, Anna. Yes, Anna.
Hi, Riverside County. In the last SEAC meeting, we discussed administrative leave, that we have received guidance that it's not credible, and we talked about a circular, a potential circular that will be distributed. Is that still in the works?
One moment, I'll give Nicole an opportunity to answer if you can get her a microphone.
Yes, it is still in the works.
Is there a timeframe?
Unfortunately, right now, no. We are working on it, and we have a couple of other directives and stuff that we're also working on. So it's just kind of getting the time all together to get everything out. So it's definitely coming.
Okay, I have one more question.
Sure.
Regarding the ES-372s, I think the right of election between persons STRS. At one point in time, we were told that the form could be signed. A lot of the times, the form was being given to employees at orientation, so where potentially they were not employees yet. We were told that we could give that form at any time. Is that still the case? Because I know that some forms have been returned because the form was signed prior to the hired date. So I just wanted to get some clarification on that.
I will defer to our employer services process on how they process the forms, but basically the law is that if someone is considered hired, they have the right to make these elections. So again, we kind of defer to you guys on when you consider them to be hired. And so if you're getting things returned, I would say reach out to your employer services representative and have the conversation with them.
When you say hired, is that hired with the district or hired for the position?
We would, so the law is specific to being hired to perform creditable service. So whatever you consider that, if they're hired with the district, to me, that means that they are hired because you anticipate that they will be performing creditable service. So it's not that that's not that they are actually performing creditable service, it's that they're hired to perform creditable service. Is that what your question?
I guess it's just the way that you guys interpret it when you receive the form.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
So if the employee signs prior to the position hire date that's on the form, you will accept it? Because the form has a position start date and a position hire date, so I think the problem is that the employer's signature date is prior to those dates. So, yeah.
Right, so I mean, the concept is someone does not have a right to make this election until they are considered hired. So if someone has written on the form and signed it prior to you telling us that you have considered them hired, they don't actually have the right to make an election until they are hired. So that's probably where the issue is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it's still not totally clear, to me anyway.
Okay, maybe we could talk offline and have a little more conversation around that.
Because they still could be performing credible service prior to being in that position, so.
By you?
Yeah, I mean, they could be in a different certificated position.
Sure.
Performing credible service.
So, okay, I see what you're saying. So it's, for the 372 in particular, it's always by position. Okay. So whatever new position that they're gonna be hired in, so yeah, in the instance where they're working for you in position number 1, and then they're in June, right? And then you know that July 1st, they're going to be taking position number 2. I get what you're saying. So in that case, I think you would just have to explain that to us if we turned around and sent that back, because we maybe didn't understand that nuance, because they are, like you said, they are hired to perform credible service. But the form itself and the right of election itself is once someone is hired to perform service in that new position.
Okay.
Is that helpful?
That answers it, yes.
Okay, great.
I think the problem is the districts will offer them the position. They're going to do this position. They know it's going to. They've filled out all of their paperwork. They've signed all of their forms, and then they're just waiting. But then the district actually considers their hire date to be the date they start the position. So they'll put in hire date and start date as the same, although they've already, a month ago, signed this form, given them the position, said, okay, you're hired, you're going to be doing this.
So again, this is where we defer to you and your districts as to when you consider someone to be hired. Once they are considered hired, that's where certain timeframes come into play. So if they want to consider them hired on one date, that is the date that these employees have the right to make their elections from and within. Does that make sense? So
then that's the date they should be putting on that form as their hire date, as opposed to what they actually consider their technical hire date. It's the date they start in that position.
it's the date that they are hired to perform service in that position. So if they're hired, I'm just going to throw out a hypothetical here. If someone is hired in June with the expectation that they're going to start their job in July or September, to me, they're still hired in June. June is their hire date, even though they don't start performing service until July or August or September. But we CalSTRS cannot make that determination. That's really up to you guys and the districts. So we will go based on whatever you tell us, and then that's the dates that we have to go by as to applying what days are, like the timeframes of when someone has the right to make the election and then when we should be receiving the forms. Does that help?
Yeah, I get it. I can't get it through to my 50 districts.
Ooh, well, I think we have training on that. We can help.
And so we wanted to real quickly, because we see that folks are leaving, we do want to discuss the November 3rd meeting. And so I want to give my colleague the opportunity.
Oh, Rita, I have one more question from online.
Do you want to take the question online now, or do you want to do housekeeping first?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, let's do housekeeping, and then we'll go to the question on that we.
Well, we'll come back to the open forum.
Absolutely, we will definitely come back to the open forum. So we wanted to clarify that for the November meeting, there was discussion this morning about whether or not to meet in November of 2020. We are going to be hosting November of 2019. That conversation is going to happen on November 13th. So I just wanted to clarify that. For those folks that are driving, how many folks parked today? Okay, that's going to change. So we expect between now and when we have our next conversation on the 13th that the surface parking lot directly to the west of our building will not be available. So there could potentially be parking in our CalSTRS garage. However, the entrances to get to the garage will be different than what they are today. So that's 2 points of clarification. Where folks can park is at DGS, which is the ziggurat, the pyramid with the flat top. The DGS building does have public parking. There is a cost, so I want to make folks aware of that, but that is available. Obviously, there are metered spots in and around the headquarters. However, given the length of this meeting, that may not be an ideal solution. So don't want folks to be surprised or coming late because there's a parking issue that we didn't notify you about. We would highly encourage ride sharing, carpooling, just to help make it a little bit easier for all of us. We do expect that our parking garage here at CalSTRS will be very full with employees who are currently, like myself, parking on the surface lot. So there could be a lot of going up and down the ramps. So just plan for that in preparation for our November of 2019 meeting. On that agenda, we've included a kind of an outline of what we think will be on that agenda. We are open to feedback. It includes a lot of the items that we talked about today. There'll be a legislative update. There'll be a pension solution update, whether that'll be John or someone else from the team, unclear.